This was given to me as a gift at the age of 10, and I won't say how long that was ago.
I'm not going to ask.
It was purchased in New York at Park Benét Galleries. I was told that the jade pieces came from a ceremonial belt, Chinese, and probably came into this country in the mid to late 19th century. The piece was commissioned to incorporate these pieces of jade at the Edward Farmer studio in New York.
Edward Farmer, a prominent New York dealer and designer, specialized in Asian art, especially Chinese jade, hard stone carvings, porcelains, and lacquerware. From the 1910s through the 1930s, Farmer built his reputation by transforming antique Asian objects into luxurious Western decorative pieces. Instead of leaving these treasures untouched, he reimagined them, giving centuries-old carvings a new life in modern, high-end settings. His workshop often mounted Chinese jades, typically Qing dynasty plaques, snuff bottles, or small carvings, into elaborate new creations using gold, silver gilt, enamel, and semi-precious stones. That's exactly what's happening in this jade and gold box. At its top is an antique Chinese jade carving, prized for its symbolism, translucence, and delicate workmanship. Farmer's craftsmen then designed custom 18K gold mountings and repoussé decoration, even using mandarin beads from a necklace to form the feet of the piece, a clever fusion of old and new. These inventive combinations resonated with wealthy American collectors of the time who wanted objects that felt both exotic and stylish. Farmer's work offered them a perfect blend of traditional Chinese artistry and contemporary Western luxury design.
This is, in fact, as you turn it up and look, you can see right here, Edward Farmer, 18-karat gold. So what we're looking at is not just a regular Edward Farmer box. You're looking at one of the finest boxes Edward Farmer ever made. And I've seen lots of Edward Farmer things. These incorporate mandarin beads from a necklace. And I would have to say that this is going to be worth quite a bit of money. You're smiling. You ought to smile.
Well,
you got this as a gift,
better
didn't you?
than not too much.
You got this as a gift?
It was a gift from a wealthy friend of the family, yes.
Well, in fact, this is worth, I would say, between $80,000 and $125,000. It's a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
Tell me what you know about this pendant.
Well, I know it's a white jade carving. I know not much other than that. We inherited it from my husband's mother.
Oh, yeah? Do you know where she got it?
I have no idea. She traveled the world, so I don't know.
And you tried to sell it at one time, and what happened there?
Well, we put it in an estate sale, and the girl that did the estate said that she did some research on it and thought it might be worth $1,200, but it didn't sell, so it's been incognito for...
During the 1700s, under the reigns of Emperors Kangxi, Yongzheng, and Qianlong, Imperial jade workshops were pushed to achieve a new level of refinement. Pieces that showcased extraordinary subtlety, precision, and technical mastery. Jade carvers of this era often transformed small plaques into amulets, court ornaments, and personal adornments, drawing inspiration from nature, mythology, and auspicious symbolism. These pendants were typically thinly carved and beautifully polished to let the stone's natural glow shine through, qualities you can clearly see in this example. Made during the Chenlong reign, around 1735 to 1736, this pendant features elegant scrolling forms, undulating waves, and a mix of animal motifs, all hallmarks of jade carving from this period. Today, white jade pendants from the 18th century remain some of the most desirable Qing dynasty works. Collectors prize them not only for their luminous material and imperial craftsmanship, but also for the cultural meaning embedded in every carved detail.
Do you want to know what we think it's worth?
I would love to know what you think it's worth.
We think that at auction, this would probably sell for between $15,000 to $20,000.
That's better than $1,200.
Exactly.
$15,000 to $20,000. That's amazing.
It's a good jade, and there's very little of it on the market right now.
It belonged to my grandfather. He and my grandmother had it on their mantle, and when he died in 1971, we inherited it. I don't know where he bought it or got it from.
I've seen a lot of jade objects, but I have never seen this form. It is something called a qilin.
The qilin is one of China's most revered mythical creatures, a gentle, auspicious beast associated with prosperity, wisdom, and divine protection. For centuries, it has appeared in everything from imperial textiles to sculptures and temple art, serving as a guardian figure that brings good fortune wherever it appears. By the early 20th century, artisans continued to embrace the qilin as a favorite subject, carving it in jade, porcelain, bronze, and lacquer. Its enduring presence reflects how deeply rooted it is in Chinese culture, bridging mythology, artistry, and spiritual symbolism. In this example, the qilin is sculpted from yellow jade, a material prized not only for its rarity, but also for its association with wealth and blessing. The carving shows a beautiful blend of late Qing craftsmanship, soft, rounded modeling, a refined polish, and a poised symbolic stance. You can even see hints of early Art Deco influence in the simplified contours and elegant proportions. Resting atop its head is a small stack of books, or possibly a treasure box, an added symbol of knowledge, culture, and good fortune, perfectly in line with the qilin's auspicious reputation. Today, yellow jade carvings from this transitional period are especially cherished for their glowing material, their faithful continuation of traditional workmanship, and the way they capture a moment when Chinese art was subtly evolving while honoring its ancient roots.
Is this something you're planning on keeping? Or?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd say for insurance purposes, somewhere around $40,000.
All right, that's amazing.
I know it was given to my grandfather for payment due to him.
This lamp, crafted by the Steuben Glass Company, exemplifies early 20th century American glassmaking at its most luxurious and refined. Steuben, founded in 1903 by Frederick Carter and Thomas G. Hawkes in Corning, New York, quickly became celebrated for its high-quality art glass and innovative use of color. The pair of semi-translucent green glass elements in this lamp evokes the soft, luminous qualities of natural jade, a material long prized for its beauty and subtle glow. The glass is mounted on a finely crafted bronze base, thoughtfully designed to support and enhance the work without drawing attention away from it. Today, Steuben jade green lamps are highly sought after by collectors for their exceptional craftsmanship, elegant coloration, and status as iconic examples of American decorative glass.
This dates to about 1840. It's a real treat to see. Easily at auction, this piece would go from $800 to $1,000. Collectors love this because it hasn't been cut down.
Well, I know it's a carved jade vessel, and we got it in a estate sale about 18 years ago in Nashville, and I really don't know a whole lot about it.
As China moved through the uncertainties of the post-Republic of China period, Jadiite carving became more than just an art form. It became a symbol of cultural continuity. Even as politics shifted, workshops held firmly to techniques that had been passed down since the Ming dynasty, favoring high-polished surfaces, shallow relief carving, and harmonious, symmetrical designs. Many of the classic motifs stayed the same too. Lotus blossoms, rui symbols, phoenixes, and dragons continued to dominate the decorative vocabulary. On this vase, the foliate handles with loose rings are a perfect example of the kind of technical mastery these artisans were known for. By the mid-20th century, improved polishing tools allowed carvers to achieve incredibly smooth surfaces and crisp detailing. You can see that refinement in the figure of Guan Yin, the goddess of mercy, carved onto the body of this vase with remarkable clarity and grace. Today, well-carved Jadiite pieces from this era are highly collectible. Even without imperial provenance, their beauty, craftsmanship, and fine color make them standouts in any serious jade collection.
And it's fairly thickly sided. Well, the earlier ones, and the ones from the early 20th century, are very, very thin. So this is something that I would say will likely dates from the first quarter to the first half of the 20th century. and they're made for decorative purposes. It's a very nice, big version. So what did you pay for this?
I think we paid approximately around $500.
And you've had some people tell you that it's worth how much?
Well, some people said $1,200 to $1,500.
I would say in an auction market, this is likely to realize somewhere between $12,000 and $18,000 in today's market.
All right, great.
So that's a pretty good bit of compounded interest, isn't it?
Tenfold or so. Yes, I couldn't put money in the bank for that.
I think so.
Along with my sister, I inherited this in 2021 from our mother. She inherited it from a Foreign Service officer that she worked with. And this Foreign Service officer was stationed in a lot of countries in Asia. This is one in a collection of jade and I believe marble pieces. She was very fond of jade, this Foreign Service officer lady. She liked to collect jade, marble, and all these Asian trinkets. And my mom loved them. So she displayed them and we keep them in a box.
Chinese mirrors, mounted with jade decoration from the early 20th century, offer a fascinating glimpse into a moment when tradition and modern taste intersected. During the Republican era, from 1912 to 1949, there was a renewed enthusiasm for classical Chinese art forms, and luxury objects, especially those made for elite households or for export, often blended precious materials with elegant, time-honored motifs. In pieces like this one, artisans carved jade elements and set them into the back of the mirror. These decorations typically featured floral scrolls, longevity symbols, archaic patterns, or bats, symbols of good fortune and protection. Jade was the perfect choice, not only for its beauty and durability, but also for its cultural associations with purity, virtue, and safeguarding the owner. Although deeply rooted in Qing dynasty design, early 20th century jade-mounted mirrors also reveal subtle touches of the era's modern influences. You'll notice simplified lines, more stylized forms, and a hint of Art Deco sensibility woven into the traditional motifs. Because of their blend of fine craftsmanship and meaningful symbolism, mirrors like this were cherished personal objects in their time, and they remain highly desirable to collectors today.
So it's possible that the hand mirror was comprised in the 1920s. That was Edwardian or early 20th century period of the vanity or the brush set.
Sure.
So that would be consistent with dating this piece. And it's likely that the fitted box was contemporary to the construction of the hand mirror. The value in a retail setting, the box and the hand mirror together, would be $10,000.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good to know. It's exciting.
These pieces were brought by my grandmother from China in the late 1940s when she went to Germany and then subsequently to the United States. That's a picture of my mother and father on their wedding day. That was taken in 1944.
During the late 19th and early 20th century, Qing artisans favored auspicious motifs, fluid low-relief carving, and impeccably polished surfaces that highlighted jade's long-standing associations with virtue, longevity, and imperial refinement. Objects produced during this period were often cherished as personal adornments or scholars' pieces and were passed down as family heirlooms. Serpentine, a soft green ornamental stone popular at the time and used here for the photograph frame, provided an elegant complementary setting. In contrast, the 18th century white jade pendant on display exhibits far fewer inclusions than the serpentine and is carved with the figure of a qilin, the revered Chinese mythical beast, in keeping with its era. Although originally worn as a pendant, the piece was later mounted onto a hardwood stand, yet its intrinsic value remains unaffected. This pairing, an 18th century white jade pendant combined with an early 20th century serpentine frame or stand, reflects evolving aesthetic tastes as well as the enduring appreciation for earlier Qing craftsmanship among collectors and connoisseurs.
Which one do you think's worth more money?
Well, I assumed size-wise the picture frame would be worth much more.
The serpentine picture frame, its auction estimate would be between $800 and $1,200.
Okay.
The white jade 18th century pendant at auction would have a pre-sale estimate of $3,000 to $5,000.
Oh, wow. I never would have expected that. That's wonderful.
I know this is jade. Maybe it's from China, it's Asian. I bought it in a estate sale.
Great. And was the estate sale local or?
No, local.
Okay. How many years ago did you buy it?
Many years. I think it's maybe 10 years.
10 years. Okay. Do you recall what you paid for it?
Yeah, I paid $30.
$30. You're quite right. It is jade.
Around 1675, during the late Kangxi period of the early Qing dynasty, artisans began embracing soft, rounded animal forms, transforming symbolic creatures into compact, contemplative sculptures designed for the scholar's desk. The duck was a particularly popular subject, carrying rich meaning in Chinese culture. Seen as a symbol of harmony, fidelity, and gentle movement, it represented marital happiness and the peaceful rhythms of everyday life. Kangxi-era jade carvers were exceptionally skilled at capturing these qualities, using meticulous abrasion techniques to achieve a smooth, satin-like polish that made the carvings both beautiful and inviting to handle. In this example, the duck is rendered in an archaic style, most clearly seen in the scroll designs on the tail, eyes, and neck. Motifs that reflect the transition from late Ming to early Qing artistic traditions. With its soft modeling, delicately incised plumage, and serene posture, a 17th century jade duck like this would have been prized by scholars and connoisseurs who appreciated objects that blended craftsmanship, symbolism, and meditative beauty.
Look back to the past in its carving. It's also very typical of late Ming, early Qing carvings, so 17th century carvings. Beautiful detail to the wings, where they've been incised in relief to show feathers, a really nice quality. Also, the polish is a very matte polish, very soft polish overall. A lot of reproductions, a lot of later jades have a very high polish, a very bright polish. Do you have an idea of value?
I don't know, but I think it's maybe at least more than $30.
Yes. In an auction today, 10 to 15,000.
Oh my God! So I have to buy the lunch for my boyfriend. I never think about it. It's so much.
I bought it at a flea market.
Okay.
From a dealer who sells American Indian artifacts.
Okay.
And I bought it as a group with American Indian, and this came with the purchase. I believe the lot was $1,200 to $1,500.
Carved jade from the Yuan dynasty offers a fascinating glimpse into a moment when Mongol, Chinese, and Central Asian artistic traditions were blending in new and unexpected ways. Under Mongol rule, luxury arts didn't fade, they flourished. Jade workshops, long tied to elite Chinese culture, adapted to changing tastes while still holding on to the classical carving methods that had defined earlier dynasties. Yuan artisans often preferred bold, deeply carved reliefs, and this piece is a great example. At its center is a goose depicted in a lotus pond, a motif that combines natural beauty with layers of symbolic meaning. Plaques like this were commonly used as belt ornaments, garment fittings, or personal adornments. In the diverse, multicultural world of the Yuan Empire, they served as visible markers of rank, refinement, and cultural identity. Jade continued to symbolize virtue, longevity, and social status, but genuine Yuan examples are far less common than their later Qing counterparts. That rarity makes authentic carvings from this period especially desirable to collectors today.
The silver bangle dates to 20th or 21st century. The jade panel dates to the Yuan period, which is 1271 to 1368.
Wow.
So quite old. What we have depicted here in the center with the jade is a goose in a lotus pond, and you can see the lotus flowers at the top here.
Right.
Generally, plaques of this type would have been sewn into a piece of fabric, and you would have worn them perhaps around your waist. At auction, I would estimate something like this at $4,000 to $6,000.
Good. I didn't know. I was hoping between 5 and 10, you know.
This jade necklace dates to the early 20th century, a period when Chinese jewelers were producing some of their most refined works using highly prized Jadiite imported from Myanmar. By 1910, Jadiite had become the gemstone of choice among the Qing elite and affluent patrons abroad, celebrated for its translucency, vibrant colors, and enduring associations with purity, prosperity, and longevity. The necklace features carvings of a bird, oranges, and peaches, motifs traditionally linked to abundance and good fortune, aligning perfectly with the decorative vocabulary of jade objects from the turn of the century. What makes this piece especially noteworthy is the addition of pink tourmaline. The stone rose sharply in popularity after Empress Dowager Cixi developed a well-known preference for it, making tourmaline-accented jewelry highly fashionable in elite circles. This necklace blends late Imperial aesthetics with modern craftsmanship while retaining the timeless elegance and symbolism of Chinese jewelry.
Especially jade, so that's good. Oh, good. So conservative prices, but at the auction it should do 10 to 15,000. Oh my word! Huh. So you should be careful. Yes.
I brought my grandmother's necklace. She brought it from China. She came to the U.S. in 1923, and then this I bought on an online auction about 4 years ago.
You know about this particular piece, it's high carat gold.
Right.
It's like 22, 23 carat gold. And the carving of the jade in this heart is Jadeite. And it's a little mottled, but it's a new piece. It's not old. I mean, it has to be 100 years old before it's old.
Jade has been highly valued in China for millennia, symbolizing virtue, longevity, and protection. While coins from the Han dynasty were typically cast in bronze with a square central aperture, the example seen here is carved from jade, a rarer and more luxurious reinterpretation of the traditional form. Repurposing these ancient shapes into a compact showcases remarkable craftsmanship, transforming utilitarian objects into elegant personal accessories through refined metalwork and harmonious decorative integration. By creating objects like this, artisans bridged contemporary luxury with China's illustrious past, celebrating both cultural heritage and personal refinement. Today, such pieces are highly sought after by collectors of Chinese jade, Han Dynasty artifacts, and decorative arts, often commanding significant value depending on condition, jade quality, and the authenticity of the original coins.
Black enamel, even on the back. Your chain is platinum. I don't think it really belongs on this piece, but it's a magnificent two-tone platinum chain. Now, how much did you pay for this?
$1,200.
Your jadeite piece over here would bring anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 at auction.
Oh, okay.
Your compact at auction could easily go anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000.
No kidding! Oh my God! I don't believe it! Oh my God! Really? I don't believe it.
I worked as a private duty nurse. The lady I was taking care of, as a thank you, she gave me the snuff bottle.
Chinese, late 19th century piece.
This Chinese snuff bottle dates to the late 19th century, during the Qing dynasty, a time when snuff bottles had become cherished personal possessions as well as highly collectible works of art. Although tobacco smoking was prohibited, powdered snuff was allowed because it was believed to have medicinal benefits, and the bottles that held it quickly evolved into expressions of status, refinement, and personal taste. This example is carved from jade, a material long associated with purity, virtue, and longevity. Its smooth, cool surface made it especially practical for storing snuff during China's warm urban summers. Adding to its appeal is the lacquer painting and shell inlay decorating the surface, which introduce layers of color, texture, and artistry, transforming the bottle into a small but striking statement of craftsmanship.
It's actually done in Japan and exported out. In the auction, it will bring 3,000 to 5,000.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because it's, the jade is very good quality.
This was a gift from my Aunt Juanita. She went to Shanghai in 1929 to teach English at Shanghai University, and they lived in Shanghai until 1957, and they moved to New York City. And I don't know if it's something that she had in China and brought with her, or if it's something she purchased in New York City.
During the Han dynasty, jade held its highest cultural status in China, symbolizing purity, eternity, authority, and the connection between the human and spiritual realms. Among the most important jade forms of the period was the bai, a flat, circular disc with a central aperture. In Han cosmology, the round shape represented the heavens, while the opening at the center symbolized the axis linking earthly life with the celestial world. Bai discs like this one were used in ritual offerings, imperial ceremonies, and elite burials. Many were placed on the bodies of the deceased to protect the spirit and ensure a peaceful passage to the afterlife. Although the Bai form originated much earlier, dating back to the Neolithic Liangzhu culture, Han artisans elevated the tradition by adding more elaborate carvings, cloud scrolls, grain-patterned surfaces, and curling dragons, as seen in this example. Today, a Han Dynasty Celadon jade bee is valued not only for its age and craftsmanship, but also for its profound symbolic meaning within early Chinese belief systems.
So I'm not sure, I'd love to be sure always, but I'm not sure whether this actually is an 18th century bee or is this an early 20th century version of the same thing. So what I'm going to do in terms of value is use the more conservative figure.
Okay.
As if it dated from the early 20th century, but it's the kind of thing that's going to require more research. You want to venture a guess on what kind of value this would have?
Well, before hearing all that, I might have said like $400, $500.
I think a more reasonable amount would be $15,000 to $20,000
Easy.
at auction.
Oh, goodness. Wow. My friend told me not to get emotional.
After the Second World War, my husband came back from Germany, and then he was sent to Korea.
Really?
He was a chemist, and he was in charge of the chemical plants over there. A Korean wanted something American. I really cannot remember what it was. And he offered to trade my husband whatever he gave him American for this jade collection.
The Chenlong era, 1735 to 1796 of the Qing dynasty, is regarded as a golden age of Chinese jade carving, distinguished by technical brilliance, aesthetic sophistication, and imperial patronage. Emperor Chenlong himself was a devoted collector and connoisseur, personally overseeing the production and acquisition of jade objects that exemplified both exceptional craftsmanship and rich cultural symbolism. During this period, white nephrite jade was especially prized, and small carvings, such as these bai discs, censers, and brush washers, were crafted for the imperial court to reflect Chenlong's refined taste. Artisans achieved high relief and open work designs, often incorporating dragons, phoenixes, Buddhist motifs, and auspicious symbols, many of which are visible on these examples. Jade carvings from the Chenlong era are celebrated today for their precision, intricate detail, and harmonious composition, embodying the pinnacle of Qing dynasty artistry.
The entire collection would bring probably now, because the market is really hot, $40,000 to $60,000 easily at auction.
Wow.
What a wonderful acquisition for trade. These are really terrific, beautifully carved examples from the reign of the Emperor Chenlong.
That much?
I'm so excited that you brought them in.
My children will be very interested too, because as you know, eventually it'll be theirs.
Mom and Dad traveled extensively out of the country, in the country.
And they would come back with things that they picked up in the antique stores. I think they brought this back from somewhere in their travels in the U.S.
Approximately what period of time?
Probably in the 70s or the 80s.
By the late 18th century, Chinese jade had become a must-have luxury among European aristocrats and collectors, many of whom acquired these treasures through expanding trade networks like the East India Company. Jewelers such as Edward Farmer quickly recognized this growing fascination. They began adding precious metal mounts to Chinese jade pieces, blending Eastern craftsmanship with Western style to create objects that felt both exotic and fashionable. The mounting on this Chinese jade pomander does exactly that. It highlights the stone's natural beauty while giving it a refined European touch, all without overshadowing its cultural roots. Back in China, during the reign of Emperor Chenlong, jade censers were far more than functional items. They signaled status, sophistication, and an appreciation for artistry. Chenlong himself was a passionate patron of the arts and encouraged the production of luxurious jade objects like the censer shown here. His commissions set new standards for technical excellence and artistic refinement. Today, jade pieces from the 18th century remain incredibly desirable. Collectors and museums eagerly compete for works with imperial connections, exceptional carving, or unusual forms, factors that can drive their value to impressive heights at auction.
That's why it's 18th, 19th century. Because one of the things, too, is these people were carving in the same style over and over and over through centuries with very little variation.
So this would have been hand engraved?
All hand done.
Okay.
Every single thing would
and
be
this,
hand done.
The Mr. Farmer would have gotten this piece and he would have mounted it on.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
This one here, with the farmer name on it, would be probably $6,000 to $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that's here, the Mughal one, would be more like $8,000 to $12,000.
You're kidding. Unbelievable.
And that is at auction. That's
Right,
an auction
right,
estimate.
right.
And I would not be surprised if they sold for much more at the end of the day.
About 20 years ago, I was at an auction. It was a storage and moving type of auction, and they had a few pieces on the table, and I happened to see this, and it went up for auction, and I purchased it for between $20 and $40. And for 20 years, it's been sitting in my display cabinet, and I never knew anything about it. I believe that's jade. It has that cold touch to me. I'm not an expert. I don't know anything about jade, but I knew that it was jade.
Nephrite white jade like this came into prominence in China during the Kangxi period around 1700s. Unlike emerald green jadiites that was imported from Burma, this type of jade was sourced from Khotan, Hotan, and Yakand regions in present-day Xinjiang, western China, and becomes the major face of technical refinement that's characterized by archaic bronze forms and restrained decorative style. Chinese nephrite jade vase is too hard to be cut or carved by iron or steel tools. Rather, they are made with abrasive grinding or rotary tools that came into play during the creation of his curved handles and pendant leaves at the neck and floral pattern at the bottom that's adorn this vase. To create an hollow interior vase, or zun like this, the carver had to remove the vast majority of the stone from the interior, using tubular drills and abrasive sands. The coloration of this vase also sets it apart with different patches indicating the mastery of Kangxi-era master carver that were judged by their thin uniform walls of patches, a process that could take months or even years for a single piece. The thinner the wall, the more translucent the jade appeared, which was a mark of supreme technical mastery. Although this piece lacks its lid, it still achieved a rich, smooth, waxy luster that highlighted the material's innate beauty, a preference rooted in the literati Chinese tradition.
With this beautiful patination, and part of the surface is from years of handling. At auction, I think it's not unreasonable to estimate this to sell in the range of $10,000 to $15,000.
Really? Really? That was a good $20 investment I made. Oh my God. Well, if it had the lid, what would the value be? Would it increase the value?
I think it would be reasonable to expect it to be in the $30,000 to $50,000 range.
If it had the lid.
It belonged to my
mother-in-law and father-in-law. My father-in-law was the first consul general for the new country of the Republic of Korea in New York City. I don't know how it came into their possession, but they gave it to my husband, and when he died, it came to me.
And what do you understand this to be?
My best guess is it's a small white jade rice bowl and plate or saucer.
By the Qing dynasty, jade carving had reached an extraordinary level of refinement. Artisans weren't just making intricate figurines. They were crafting elegant, everyday forms like dishes, cups, and rice bowls, all inspired by the shapes of fine porcelain. Of course, pieces like this white jade dish and bowl were never meant for actual daily use. They were luxury objects, gifts for the imperial court, treasured items for a scholar's desk, or simply beautiful pieces meant to be admired. Their incredibly thin walls, silky polish, and perfectly rounded forms show just how skilled these artisans were. They also reflect the superb quality of the raw stone itself, which came primarily from Khotan in Xinjiang, the most prized jade source of the time. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, workshops continued producing these classic forms, drawing heavily from earlier Ming and Qing designs to keep tradition alive. Today, collectors prize these jade bowls for their purity, craftsmanship, and timeless connection to China's literati culture, a tradition where beauty, symbolism, and artistry all come together.
The color of this is indicative of a type of quality that would have been only available for the very wealthiest of people. That's what helps us to understand a time frame when this was made. And the same sort of process I use for the bowl. So you can see here, it's a little bowl with a cover. And this shape is also a shape you find from the late 18th century and forward. So I suspect that this one actually is 20th century also. Want to venture a guess about the value?
Maybe $1,000.
Well, I think it's worth a bit more than that. I believe that the two objects together are worth $15,000 to $25,000 at auction.
Oh my heavens. Oh my heavens. That is stunning.
I grew up in Switzerland, and my parents started collecting Chinese art in the 1950s. My father went to China in 1964, and I don't know if he purchased this in China or if he purchased it through a dealer in London that my parents bought a lot of items from.
This is a jade point set into a bronze shaft.
During the Zhou dynasty, jade was more than a precious material. It was a symbol of moral virtue, authority, and a connection to the divine. While bronze served as the practical choice for weapons, jade spear points were crafted for ceremonial and ritual use rather than combat. This example is mounted on a bronze shaft, demonstrating both the technological skill and artistic sophistication of the period. Though modeled on functional weaponry, its flawless polish and meticulously shaped edges reveal its true purpose, a ceremonial insignia used in ancestral rites, elite burials, or as a marker of noble rank. This Zhou dynasty jade spear point embodies the era's political hierarchy, ritual practices, and moral philosophy, a testament to the enduring cultural significance of jade in early China.
We have this kind of reaction to the surface. For years and years and years, these tombs lay undisturbed throughout the Chinese countryside, but in the late 19th century, they started to build a railway system and a road system through the countryside, and in the process, they were unearthing early works of art that were in tombs that were in the way of the construction. Many of those objects form the core of what we see in the great Western museums throughout the world. Almost none of these retain that a jade spear point. You find them not only in spears, but knives. Most often this part doesn't survive. The fact that these two have survived intact is pretty unusual.
That's great.
What do you think this is worth?
$20,000.
You are great. It's worth about $20,000 to $30,000 at auction.
That's wonderful.
I was told when I purchased it that it was jade, but I never had that confirmed, and I've always wondered. I purchased it at an auction about 10 or maybe a little more than 10 years ago, and at the time it was sold for jade. I paid about $50 for it.
One of the first things that attracted me to it is the shape.
Around 1920, during the late Qing and early Republic periods, jade censers remained prized both domestically and among international collectors. These pieces preserved traditional forms inspired by earlier dynasties, but were often scaled down and refined for decorative display rather than practical use. Censers like this one symbolized harmony and the connection between heaven and earth, serving ritual, scholarly, and domestic functions. Its small size, smooth polished surfaces, and delicate celadon hue highlight the translucency and beauty of the jade, while the tripod base, flared rim, and restrained form echo classical design principles. Today, early 20th century jade censers are valued for their craftsmanship, material quality, and cultural significance, representing the enduring reverence for jade in Chinese art.
In the 18th century, but also potentially in the early 20th century. There happens to be forms that exist from the 17th century and 18th century, even into the 19th century, that approximate this shape, that were used as censers. And as a censer, you'd put sand in the base and incense sticks on it, but it's an unusual kind of shape. A conservative dating would be from the first quarter of the early 20th century. But I could argue that it could be from the late 18th, early 19th century. But it's inconclusive. And I think a conservative number is going to be in the range of $15,000 to $20,000. And that would be at auction.
I'm astonished. Totally unexpected, totally astonished.
Let's pretend that I could prove that it was to a period such as the Qing period, which is an emperor that followed the Chenlong emperor, so 1796 to 1820. If it were from that time period, then I think you're probably looking at a value that's more in the $50,000 to $80,000 range.
That is incredible.
At auction.
The only thing that I know is that it belonged to my mother, and she collected some objects that were Asian origin.
Okay, well, she had beautiful taste. She picked something that is really quite pretty. It's Chinese.
Guan Yin, the Bodhisattva of compassion, has been one of the most cherished figures in Chinese Buddhism for over 1,000 years, beloved for her gentle presence and her promise of mercy and protection. During the Qing dynasty, artisans carved Guan Yin figures with beautifully serene faces, soft flowing robes, and elegant poses that captured a sense of spiritual calm. These works were meant to inspire peace just by being in the room. Around the same time, Chinese jade carvings began finding their way into Western homes, and workshops in Shanghai, Beijing, and Canton started adding silver mounts, bases, and even halos to appeal to foreign tastes, as seen in this example. These additions weren't just for looks. They helped stabilize delicate carvings and elevated them into proper display pieces, whether for a scholar's table or an altar. Collectors value pieces like this for the purity of the jade, the finesse of the carving, and the distinctive craftsmanship of the silverwork, a combination that makes each example truly unique.
Very pretty piece, probably made in the late 19th century, around 1880, 1890, and at auction today, I think it would easily bring between $3,000 and $5,000.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
That's a nice estimate for such a small little stone, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Well, these are a pair of bookends that came out of my grandfather's attic. My great-grandfather was a diplomat in China in the 1920s.
These Chinese carved jade bookends capture a moment when Qing-era jade artistry was beginning to attract serious international attention. By the late Imperial and early Republican periods, Western collectors were developing a real appetite for Asian decorative arts, and Chinese workshops responded by adapting traditional carving techniques into new export-friendly formats, including elegant desk accessories like these. The bookends feature classic imagery of dragons rising from swirling waves, a powerful motif in Chinese art symbolizing immortality, authority, and the forces of the cosmos. It's the kind of scene that instantly draws the eye and tells a story. Today, pieces like this are admired not only for the quality of the carving and the purity of the stone, but also for the way they embody a cross-cultural dialogue. Chinese craftsmanship meeting Western tastes in a remarkably harmonious way.
Dragons among turbulent waves hold special meaning. The dragon is representative of the Chinese imperial court. Connotations of immortality and power and substance and continuity. The market for Asian things, particularly Chinese, is really strong, and I'm thinking that's probably worth around $5,000 to $8,000.
Oh my goodness.
I inherited it. It was my great aunt Hazel's. She brought it out of China in the 40s or 50s.
You have a great example of an Art Deco 14-karat gold and diamond mounting.
In Chinese culture, jade, especially Jadiite and the historically older Nephrite, holds a significance that far surpasses gold or diamonds, having been treasured for millennia by emperors and nobility for ceremonial objects, fine carvings, and the most valued jewelry. Unlike diamonds, sapphires, or rubies, which gain their beauty through intricate faceting, Jadiite is almost always shaped into cabochons, with the most coveted shade being Imperial jade, a vivid, pure emerald green colored by traces of chromium as seen in this ring. These cabochons are typically secured by a thin metal rim that fully encircles the stone, a preferred setting that protects the delicate, high-value gem while showcasing its serene translucence. During the Art Deco era, Jadite rings began to emerge with a fusion of diamonds, and this elegant pairing, as seen in this particular piece, quickly became one of the most fashionable styles of the 1920s and 1930s. In this creation, diamonds serve to complement and elevate the jadeite, their brilliant white fire providing a striking contrast to the calm, luminous green of the cabochon. For collectors, a high-quality jadeite and diamond ring is more than jewelry. It is an investment, a cultural treasure, and a continuation of one of China's most enduring artistic traditions.
And you have an older piece of Chinese jadeite that has been recarved and fit to the mounting. At auction today, this ring would be worth in the $8,000 to $12,000 range.
Wow.
My dad got them from a family when he was in Formosa. It was in the middle of the 50s. All he told us was that a family that he had stayed with and was friends with gave him that as a parting gift when he came home.
Do you have any idea how old they are? Did you have any assumptions?
Yes, my father had taken them to the museum in San Francisco at one time in a brown bag on the bus. And he said that they said it was the Chenlong dynasty, 1735 to 1796.
During the Republic period, from 1912 to 1949, Chinese jade production underwent a major transformation as it shifted away from imperial patronage and moved toward a commercially driven market, leading to changes in carving styles, themes, and production centers. Despite this shift, the technical skill inherited from the Qing dynasty remained strong, and many artisans continued to follow the refined, detailed carving traditions of the 18th century, often reproducing earlier ritual vessels, animals, and mythological figures, though sometimes with slightly less meticulous precision than true imperial works. Among these creations was this pair of white jade rams, carved in a recumbent pose that minimized the risk of chipping while emphasizing the natural volume, smoothness, and purity of the stone. In Chinese symbolism, the ram represented the bright, active, warming energy of the sun, making it a powerful emblem of strength, vitality, and auspicious force, and these rams were further enhanced by the lingzhi fungus, a traditional symbol of longevity and immortality. Carvers of the period also employed the technique of kiaos, or using the skin, skillfully incorporating the natural russet or ochre markings on the jade pebble into the animal's body to heighten its realism and artistic character. To complete the presentation, the rams were mounted on finely carved Hongmu wooden stands, which not only elevated the artwork visually, but were often original to the carving itself. In today's market, jade carvings of this type remained highly sought after by collectors, valued for their craftsmanship, symbolism, and their place within the evolving history of Chinese jade artistry.
Now, mainland Chinese buyers who love white jade would think that these are highly desirable even if they are not 18th century. So what do you think they're worth?
I don't know. I was told once they were worth about 2,000.
Well, as Republic period pieces, at auction, they would be worth or carry a pre-sale estimate of at least $15,000 to $25,000.
Wow.
Now, if in fact they were Chenlong, they would be worth considerably more, maybe $80,000 to $120,000.
My great-grandfather was the ambassador to China during the Box Rebellion, and my great-grandmother befriended the Empress. She didn't like most foreigners, but she did like her. And when my mother was born, the Empress Dowager sent one of her ladies-in-waiting to buy a present. And this was the present. There were two of these. My sister has the other one.
The giving of a jadite necklace, especially when bestowed by an Empress Dowager, was never a simple gesture. It was an act of high-level patronage, political strategy, and a powerful declaration of imperial favor. Empress Dowager Cixi, who served as the de facto ruler of China for nearly 50 years, was an obsessive collector and devoted patron of Jadiite. Her passion for the stone fueled the Jadiite boom of the late 19th century, elevating it to the highest status symbol within the empire. Cixi's aesthetic preference played a crucial role, as she famously favored the vibrant green of Feiqui Jadite over the creamy white of traditional nephrite, a preference clearly reflected in this necklace. The beads were simply strung on silk cord, relying entirely on the flawless quality and perfect matching of the Jadiite spheres to demonstrate the piece's value and the power of the source who could command such rare material. Jade was also believed to protect against illness and misfortune, making a Jadiite necklace a meaningful talisman meant to bestow health and longevity upon its wearer. A sentiment further reinforced by the engraved double happiness character, Sishuang, on this piece. Thus, this gift of a Jadiite necklace from the Empress Dowager carries profound weight. It signified imperial political favor, deep cultural reverence, and immense financial value, securing Jadiite's place as the supreme gemstone of the Chinese elite for generations to come.
At the time, in the 19th century, this was a very, very high-quality piece of jade, but not the best.
Okay.
Right? And that was her, like, slight in the whole thing.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we start getting to a value on a piece like this. I'd estimate the value on this is just a nice piece of jade at $30,000 to $50,000.
Oh my gosh. I'm very surprised.
In addition, because of the provenance on the piece, right, this could easily go twice that high end, and that would be at auction.
I'm amazed.
It's a kind of thing. This pendant, if it were 30 years ago, $700.
Really?
You know.
So the fact that it's been in the family all this time.
Yeah, exactly.
Has made a difference.
It certainly did.
It certainly has.
I believe them to be jade. They were both purchased at Housing Works thrift shops right here in the city. And I bought them over 10 years ago individually from two separate events that they had. And I believe them to be jade. I don't know.
Okay, and which one do you think is the oldest of the two?
I'm going to say the belt.
Do you happen to know the purpose of the other object?
I believe it to be a compact.
For thousands of years, jade held a place of unmatched prestige in Chinese culture. From the ancient Neolithic period through the rise of imperial dynasties, Chinese artisans carved it into ritual objects, ceremonial weapons, personal ornaments, and symbols of rank. As technology advanced and imperial workshops flourished, jade carving reached new artistic heights, especially during the Ming and Qing dynasties, when jade objects became deeply connected to status, hierarchy, and elite culture. Among the most refined expressions of jade craftsmanship from this era was this jade belt fitting, a small yet highly symbolic accessory worn by members of the imperial court and high-ranking officials. In the 18th century, during the height of the Qing dynasty, high-quality nephrite jade fittings were carved as both functional objects and symbols of status, worn on ceremonial belts to reflect rank and cultural refinement. This particular piece displayed low-relief carving, auspicious show and few bats, and stylized scroll dragon heads. Beside the original fitting is a reproduction belt element created not from jade, but from soapstone, a softer material selected for practical carving and modern demonstration. Although it lacked the cultural authority and durability of true nephrite jade, the soapstone reproduction helped illustrate how such fittings were mounted. Together, the 18th century jade fitting and its soapstone counterpart told a story of continuity, linking ancient craftsmanship with modern interpretation and reminding us of the skill of Qing artisans, the cultural weight of jade, and the enduring fascination with objects that once defined status, beauty, and power in the imperial world.
What one would do is put a mirror in it and sell it as a compact. And then it's a piece of chinoiserie or Japonism. It's an interesting object.
I understand.
Edward Farmer in New York is probably the most famous for doing this. Usually modification to a 18th century piece or a dynastic Chinese work of art is a bad thing. It almost always influences the price in a negative way. However, in this instance, it does not influence the price.
Okay.
Beautifully hinged, beautiful edge. The jade is superior quality, frankly. So you paid $55 for this and $200 for this.
Correct.
Let me start by saying this is probably worth what you paid for it or less.
Okay.
Now, the white jade hinged belt fitting would carry a very conservative auction estimate of around $4,000 to $6,000.
Wow. Wow. I'm impressed.
It was my uncle's. He was a career Army officer. He enlisted at the beginning of World War II, and he stayed in until 1961. He loved this. He wore it a lot, and he never married, never had children, so it was part of his estate, and his sister gave me all of the jewelry that he had. So that's when this came to me.
In Chinese history, the Art Deco period saw the creation of highly significant jewelry, such as this jade ring, dating to circa 1940, which represents both the height of Art Deco influence on Chinese craftsmanship and the established prominence of Jadiite as the gemstone of elite status. The rings from this period are defined by their contrast, the serene, organic beauty of the jade against the sharp, brilliant lines of the metal and diamonds. One striking feature of this particular piece was its subtly variegated imperial green color. Lighter clouded areas and gentle streaks gave the surface depth, vitality, and a natural character. These nuanced variations were hallmarks of high-quality jade, admired for their organic beauty and the way they softly diffused light, creating an almost luminous glow. Like most high-end jade rings of the era, the stone was cut as a cabochon, a smooth, domed, highly polished, unfacetted form, designed to showcase the jadeite's color and translucency to the fullest. Accompanying the ring was its original case, crafted not only for protection, but also as a symbol of prestige. Many cases of the period featured velvet or silk cushioning, small brass hinges, and stamped maker's marks from renowned jewelers. Today, a jade ring with its case from around 1940 is valued not merely as a piece of jewelry, but as a window into a cultural moment in which China blended modernity with deep tradition, preserving the ancient significance of jade while embracing new artistic expressions.
8 or 10 years ago, I had them appraised, and it was appraised at about $15,000.
I'm very confident that this has not been impregnated or enhanced from the period, from the jade that I've seen. But of course, without a 100% test, we can't be sure. So, in the market today, I'm going to give you a range because it's very hard to pinpoint it because of the size. I would say you're looking at an auction evaluation of $60,000 to $80,000.
Wow, I think I'll have to raise my insurance rates.
This is a piece that's been in my family as long as I can remember, and I believe it was originally purchased by my grandfather.
Do you know about what date your grandfather acquired it?
If I had to guess, it would probably be sometime in the early 1900s.
Artisans of the Qing dynasty, and earlier, often shaped jade into peaches for personal ornaments, small bowls, and table decorations, transforming a precious material into objects imbued with cultural and spiritual significance. The tradition of carving jade into peach forms in China dates back centuries, rooted in the fruit's deep symbolic meaning. By the turn of the 20th century, this tradition had evolved further as artisans experimented with new techniques, forms, and materials while preserving the peach's symbolic essence. One remarkable example from this period is this peach form bowl. What made this bowl particularly striking is its multicolored jadeite. Gentle shades of pale green, soft white, and subtle amber flowed across the surface, creating natural depth and movement. These variations were carefully highlighted by the carver, allowing the stone itself to guide the rhythm of the design and giving the bowl a lifelike, organic quality. This type of bowl was not intended for practical use. It served as a cabinet piece or presentation piece, a luxurious object designed for display in a wealthy home, often placed upon a finely carved rosewood stand custom-made to complement the jade. The dark, polished wood provided a rich contrast, elevating the bowl visually while reflecting traditional Chinese display practices, in which precious jade pieces were mounted on carved wooden stands for both protection and aesthetic appreciation. The peach-form bowl is more than a vessel. It represents a harmonious blend of artistry, symbolism, and technical mastery, celebrating centuries of jade carving tradition while capturing the creativity and refinement of early 20th century artisans.
Because there was a big boom in carving jadeite in the 1980s, and a lot of pieces came on the market, and the prices became so astronomical, and then suddenly dropped because people knew that they were machine carved. But this is a tour de force. This is an exception to the rule here.
Oh, okay.
Now, at auction, currently, this piece would carry a pre-sale estimate of $40,000 to $60,000.
You're kidding. Really?
It's a marvelous example of its type. It's really an exceptional piece, beautiful color,
beautiful.
tour
I
de
love it.
force carving. Thank you very much for bringing it in.
Thank you.
These are some antique jade pieces that were acquired in about the last 12 years. They were bought from auctions, investing with a family member.
And so obviously you like jade.
Yes, very much.
So the first thing I'd like to talk about here is the necklace. Here we have this beautiful jade necklace. There are carved balls, and then there's these 3 jade rings that are connected, and these are all interconnected by gold wirework links. This piece dates probably around the 1930s or 40s. Do you recall how much you paid for the piece?
This piece was about $5,000.
Around $5,000.
An investment in this.
Throughout the 20th century, jade jewelry underwent a striking transformation shaped by cultural exchange, global trade, evolving fashion trends, and the increasing availability of high-quality Burmese jadeite. Smooth, domed cabochons became the preferred form for rings and earrings, emphasizing the stone's natural translucency and vibrant color. Geometric mountings, platinum settings, calibre-cut jade, and diamond accents reflect the influence of Art Deco design, while the carefully placed diamonds in this collection add sparkling contrast, enhancing the overall elegance. Over time, demand for the coveted Imperial green Jadiite has soared, making the finest examples among the most valuable colored gemstones in the world.
It was existing in the piece. So we know that the jade is actually much older than this mounting is. So it was probably out of an earlier piece that was later remounted.
Wow.
Probably in the last 30 or 40 years.
Wow.
But
That's
a beautiful
amazing.
piece of jade.
Yes.
So we've got good, better, and best as far as jade is concerned. So you said you paid $5,000 for this piece. I would say in today's market, this piece, if you were going to go out and buy it again, you'd be looking at somewhere around $7,000.
Oh, okay. Very good.
On the earrings, you said about $3,000. And in today's marketplace, at auction, you would have to probably pay around $8,000 or $9,000
Wow.
for it.
Wow. Wow. That is very, very good news.
But where you've done best is on your ring.
Okay.
The jade market has gone up quite a bit, and with a piece of jade of this quality, in today's market at auction, you're looking at somewhere between $15,000 to $20,000.
Wow.
So this is the best piece you've got. It also is the prettiest, and it's a really beautiful piece of jade.
Thank you, Peter. That is such good news. And this looks like a little jelly belly. But
It is a jelly belly, isn't it?
But it's not worth a jelly belly.
My cousin was in China in the 1920s, and he brought them back at that time and gave them to my grandmother, who in turn left them to me. And so I don't ever remember seeing anyone wear the beads.
Have you worn them?
No, I have never worn the beads.
And why not?
Well, I don't know. I just, she valued them, and we just put them away in a safe place, and we haven't worn them at all, no.
While nephrite jade had been treasured in China for millennia, the early 20th century saw Burmese jadeite rise to prominence. Jadeite's vivid greens, lavender tones, and apple green hues were more vibrant than nephrite, making it especially desirable for jewelry, particularly necklaces. The beads in this necklace are smooth, round, and graduated in size along the strand, a design influenced by the Art Deco movement when Jadiite pieces began to favor geometric arrangements. Jadite can range from opaque to semi-translucent or fully translucent. When backlit, the exceptional translucency of this necklace becomes apparent, further enhancing its value. Today, Jadiite necklaces are highly collectible, prized for their rarity, exquisite color, and fine craftsmanship.
Strung, and then put a very appropriate clasp on. Now, do you have any idea what these...
I really have no idea.
I'm going to say $25,000 to $35,000.
Oh my goodness, how wonderful. That is wonderful.
So are you happy?
Yes.
I think you should wear them.
Oh, you do?
I absolutely think
I'd
you
be
should.
a nervous wreck now to wear them.
I was in college in New York City in 1965, 66, and I went home for Thanksgiving vacation. My birthday usually falls on Thanksgiving vacation, and a very good friend of mine who was an antiques dealer in Baltimore called me up and said that he had a piece that he'd just gotten from an estate that he thought that I should have.
Censers are vessels traditionally used for burning incense in religious, ceremonial, or scholarly settings. By the early 20th century, jade censers were primarily decorative or collector's pieces rather than functional burners. They retained classic forms, round or tripod shapes, often carved with dragons, clouds, or lotus motifs, but were frequently scaled down for display rather than daily use. Made from smooth, lustrous white jade with subtle translucency, 20th century jade censers like this example blend traditional symbolism with early modern aesthetic sensibilities. Their simplified motifs emphasize purity and elegance over intricate decoration. Today, these censers remain highly sought after by both Chinese scholars and Western collectors, valued for the refinement of their carving and the quality of the jade.
It's a little bit more finished in terms of the quality. So my sense is this certainly is in the style of the 18th century works that you get in the Chenlong period, but it was done in the early part of the 20th century. Now what's happened in the last few years is that there has been an influx of buyers from China.
Yes.
That has dramatically changed the market. And what they're looking for are pieces that are of even white color, which this certainly has, but they're also looking for things that are in a traditional kind of style, 18th century style. I think that the figure that was given in the 80s was pretty stiff for the time. And if you wanted to sell this at auction today, my sense is that it would be in the $50,000 to $80,000 range at auction, which is a pretty good price.
Well, it's still a very nice birthday present.
Oh, Lord, yes.
Don't you think?
My grandmother collected Asian art, and she especially loved jade. And this is a piece from her collection. I've had it in my possession for maybe 5 to 6 years. She told me that she understood that when she purchased it, that it was given to General MacArthur from Chiang Kai-shek. Now, I don't have any documentation, but that kind of told me that maybe it was a special piece of jade.
Right.
The Chenlong dynasty was notable for both the preservation of traditional craftsmanship and the creation of scholars' objects intended for personal use or as collectible luxuries. Jade brush washers from this period were often carved in smooth, organic forms, as seen here, emphasizing the natural beauty of the nephrite rather than elaborate surface decoration. These pieces reflect the Qing scholars' dedication to both art and function, combining the tactile elegance of jade with the practical needs of calligraphy and painting. This censer is supported by a Zhaitan wood stand, intricately carved with lotus pods and blossoms, harmonizing with the jade above. Today, 19th century jade censers are highly prized for their material quality, craftsmanship, and serene aesthetic, standing as iconic examples of scholars' studio objects from the Qing period.
Wood is very dark Chinese wood called Zhaitan wood, which is highly prized. It's very dense and heavy. What makes this piece very interesting is that someone has added a date to the Chenlong dynasty, and that is 1736 to 1795. So they've added a date to make it look a little older than it is. Normally, that would be a problem. Makes it seem like it's sort of a copy.
Yeah.
But in the current market, this added date makes it a little bit more interesting.
How can you tell it's 19th century?
A lot of times it's the quality of the carving and how crisp the detail is around the edge here.
I see.
And a Chenlong piece, it would be much tighter and much crisper.
Okay.
I would say this piece would bring about $5,000 to $7,000
Really?
at auction.
Great.
If it was really 18th century, it would bring probably $30,000 to $40,000.
Wow.
This was inherited from my wife's uncle, estate. He traveled around the world for business, and he had an interest in antiques, arms, and armor. He would frequent collectors, mostly in Europe and sometimes in Asia, and he purchased quite a few daggers and some guns.
Well, this dagger here is a type of dagger called a jambia.
Mughal India was celebrated for its jade carving, heavily influenced by Persian and Central Asian artistic traditions. Jade hilts symbolized wealth, power, and refined taste, often reserved for emperors, nobles, or presented as diplomatic gifts. By the 18th century, the Ottoman Empire frequently acquired luxury objects from abroad, including Mughal jade hilts, to adorn ceremonial weapons, such as this dagger. The hilt of this dagger, typical of 17th century Mughal jade, is finely carved with floral motifs polished to a lustrous finish and accented with gemstones. The scabbard is silver, while the blade, crafted from wadded steel, usually curved and fully functional, dates to the 18th century and features Ottoman decorative elements, including an etched hunt scene as seen here today. Daggers like this are highly prized for their rarity, exceptional craftsmanship, and historical significance, exemplifying the cross-cultural exchanges between South Asia and the Ottoman Empire.
The end construction of this piece, where it ended up, was probably Ottoman Turkey. Persian blade and Mughal Indian hilt, but Ottoman silverwork. And Ottoman weapons are amongst the most desirable.
Oh my.
These are selling right now at auction in the range of $15,000 to $20,000.
Wow. That's way more than I thought, yeah.